Welcome back, everybody. It's Untitled Chapter, and we're going to be covering some Strixhaven spoilers today. Be prepared. This is going to be a long video, and before we have to dive right into it, there's a lot to talk about. But before I do so, I just want to remind everybody, please leave a like on today's video, as well as subscribe, hit the bell, leave a comment down below. And for those of you who are here for the historic mystical archive cards, I will leave a timestamp in the description so you guys can navigate to that part of the video. Those are all cards that are exclusive to Historic that are being seeded into Strixhaven packs as a way to like reprint cards and stuff for the older formats. And specifically Historic, it's mostly to benefit Historic, I think. But so yeah, let's dive right into it. We're going to talk about all 5 of the schools of magic because Strixhaven is basically the school of wizards. It's like Harry Potter. That's kind of like the theme that they were going for. And there's 5 schools of magic. So you have Lorehold, Prismari, Quandrix, Silverquill, and Witherbloom. And these are all basically just guilds, essentially, right? You have Boros, Izzet, Simic, Orzhov, and Golgari. So for any players who are a fan of these particular guilds, rejoice because you are getting a ton of support in this set. So we're going to talk about each of the schools individually, and I'm pretty sure they're all led by these different elder dragons, which they're named after. And so far there's only 4, I think. We're still missing the Golgari one, unless it's just further down in the list. But starting off with the Boros, Valimachus Lorehold. This is a 7-mana 5/5 with flying, vigilance, and haste. It's an elder dragon, and whenever it attacks, you look at the top 7 of your library. You may cast an instant or a sorcery spell with mana value less than or equal to his power from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom. So this is a really cool control finisher. I can imagine that Jeskai Control is gonna love to play this. And especially in Boros too, just in those colors, you can pump this creature's power like very easily. So you can cheat some of the most expensive instants of sorceries in the game with this creature if you want to. And the fact that it has haste is insane. Like, I mean, I guess it has to, right? It's a 7 mana. But yeah, this guy is definitely going to make a big splash. I really love the dragons, by the way, just in general, the fact that there are multicolored dragons, because people who play 5-color dragons in Commander and stuff, most of the dragons, like most of the good ones, are mono red. So it kind of limits a lot of your choices. But all of these dragons are relatively good for, multiple reasons. Hoffrey Ghostforge. This is a 5-mana 4/5 dwarf cleric with spirits you control get +1/+1 and have trample and haste. Okay. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types, and has, when this creature leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to your graveyard. It puts your creatures into a zone outside of the graveyard so they can't be interacted with until one of your non-token creatures dies. I feel like there's got to be some like weird combo potential in like an aristocrats style of shell where you can just sacrifice your creatures and kind of chain it. I mean, obviously you can't sacrifice the tokens, but just somehow looping. You can also play this with the 3-mana crypt, the one that gives you bats whenever a creature leaves play. I'm gonna put it up on the screen once I make the video, but this can pair pretty well with that, actually. And the fact that it returns the creatures back to the graveyard so you can reuse and like rinse repeat, that's pretty good. Flame Scroll Celebrant is a 2-mana 2/1 human shaman with whenever an opponent activates an ability that isn't a mana ability, he deals 1 damage to that player. Okay, that's pretty similar to Harsh Mentor, I think is the card I'm thinking of. That or the Viashino Pyromancer. It also has 1 in a red, and you can pump it. Wow, that's actually really good. So 1 in a red gives it +2/+0 until end of turn. I like that they give this creature like a mana sink, because in the early game, it's nice to shut down, like your opponent's choices. They don't want to like activate all their abilities and stuff, but like against a player where it really doesn't mean anything, being able to just pump this and it be a crazy threat is pretty nice. And it also has another half, which is Revel in Silence, a 2-mana instant, double white. Your opponents can't cast spells or activate Planeswalker loyalty abilities this turn. Exile Revel in Silence. Wow. Holy sh! So this is really nice. I mean, this card is ridiculous. It's basically just, it costs 1 more for a silence, but it also hits Planeswalkers, but it exiles itself. There's a lot of downsides, but this is going to be amazing in some niche applications. Control Mirrors, this could be really good, just like stop your opponent's turn right on their upkeep or something, so they have to counter it, or they're screwed. But yeah, this is just, that's juicy. Getting into the next card, Blade Historian is a 4 mana. This is another cycle that they seem to be starting here. Its hybrid costs 4 pips for each, so this is also going to help with devotion strategies. Blade Historian is a 2/3. Attacking creatures you control have double strike. Short, sweet, to the point. Very nice for the colors. You obviously want a lot of creatures attacking in Boros, and this is giving them double strike. It's going to close out a lot of games. Illuminate History. This is a 4 mana sorcery. This is our first lesson that we're covering. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. If there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Pretty good. So the way lessons work is if you have an ability that says you would learn, you may search your sideboard for a lesson card and put it into your hand, or you may discard a card and draw a card. So it gives you 2 different types of deck building strategies with the ability, which I think is really cool, and I like that they're doing that with the keyword abilities in the sets, because it gives control players a way to you can learn and grab stuff out of your sideboard, so you can have like a toolboxy sideboard if you want to like have your deck building that way, or you can just have it be dedicated to putting stuff in the graveyard and drawing cards. And having the option to do one or the other, I think, is really, really strong. And this is probably one of the strongest lessons I've seen so far, just because it draws, I mean, it's probably like one of, you discard cards and you draw that many cards. It's not bad, but the 7 or more cards in your graveyard, creating the 3/2, that synergizes with the dwarf we just talked about, and there are a few more dwarves that are also going to check for spirits. So I could see like a Boros spirits deck or something in the brew, maybe. Radiant Scroll Wielder is a 4 mana 2/4 Dwarf Cleric. Instant and sorcery spells you control have lifelink. I love that text. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. You may cast it this turn. If a spell cast this turn would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So yeah, this is nuts. It gives a random spell in your graveyard every upkeep, flashback. Giving your instants and sorceries lifelink is kind of relevant. Like you can put this in a Boros burn deck, and the fact that this just gets you random shocks, lightning strikes, light up the stages, just there's so many targets, guys. There's so many targets, and like if you just play nothing but good instants and sorceries for whatever your strategy is, you're always gonna hit with this guy. And like giving the lifelink is a sweet line of text. But it's that bottom text that really matters, because you're just flashbacking your stuff every single turn, and that's going to give you so much reach, especially in these colors. That's what I'm saying. Like, Boros is getting a ton of reach, and it's going to be able to play a lot of longer games, I think, and it's going to be able to better compete in today's standard. Venerable Warsinger is a 3 mana 3/3 with Vigilance and Trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of damage Venerable Warsinger has dealt damage to that player. I love this, actually. I think that this is really good. It sucks that it's not a warrior, but I think this is really good for the equipment deck that's floating around in Standard, with like Maul the Skyclaves and Embercleave, obviously. Things like that, but just giving anything like that to this is really good. It already has Vigilance and Trample. It has 2 very strong keywords on a pretty fairly statted creature. 3 mana 3/3. That's a really good rate. And you staple on Vigilance and Trample, it just makes it really good. And then it's going to just reanimate creatures from your graveyard. Even if you only get X for like 2 or less, you're still buying back your creatures. But if you can get this up to like a 5/5 and you're just buying back stuff, like this isn't an effect that I think most Boros cards have. Like White has reanimation, but Boros as a guild doesn't really get that kind of effect. And this is a really, really good line of text on this card. Plarg, Dean of Chaos, is a 2 mana 2/2 Orc Shaman. You can tap him to discard a card and draw a card. You can also pay 4 red and tap to reveal the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary, non-land card with mana value 3 or less. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put all revealed cards cast this way from the bottom of your library in a random order. What does this break? Because it has to break something, right? So there's another half of it. Augusta, Dean of Order, is a 3 mana 1/3. Is a human cleric. Other tapped creatures you control get +1/+0. Other untapped creatures you control get +0/+1. I like it. Whenever you attack, untap each creature you control, then tap any number of creatures you control. Interesting. They actually synergize very well with each other too. You can tap to draw the card, do the effect, untap the creatures, and just, so in a late game, the more you can afford to do this effect, you can at least double up with it. Yeah, I mean, obviously this card is really bananas. Like, Plarg is ridiculous because you can just play this in Living End, or basically any of the cards that cost 0, like Ancestral Vision, Living End. There's a couple more. I can't even think of them all, but this seems pretty stupid, to say the least. I'm sure in Eternal formats this is going to be good, but I mean, it does cost 5 to activate. I'm sure, there's cost of reduction and everything, but even still, like, this costs 5 and it's a 2/2. Your opponent has to deal with it, or you're going to go off, especially in like modern, like I said, modern Living End or something might play this. Who knows? Lorehold command. Getting into the first command, this is Boros, obviously. 5 mana instant. Choose 2. Create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible and haste. Lorehold command deals 3 damage to any target. Target player gains 3 life. Or sacrifice a permanent, then draw 2 cards. So you get 2 of the 4 modes, and they're all pretty decent. I mean, for 5, I guess the best you can probably get here is dealing 3 to something, gaining 3, sacrificing a permanent, and drawing 2 cards. That's not bad. Not bad. Lightning Helix costs 2. This costs 3 more to just get something else added to the line of text. Are the other effects really worth it? I'm not sure. I don't necessarily think this is the best command in the set, but I do like that it fits the theme. It creates spirit tokens that are decently statted, 3/2s. I mean, it seems like that's the average rate for them, or 3/2s. But giving them all trample, haste, and all these different effects seems pretty relevant. You can sacrifice the tokens because, you're making a bunch of tokens anyway, so you're not really too worried about sacrificing something to draw 2 cards. And then giving your creatures +1/+0, indestructible, and haste, that's huge. That's probably like one of the best lines of text on this card, because you can just push in a lot of damage. It protects your creatures against board wipes. It also gives all your creatures haste at the same turn. Like, this card just does a lot. It makes it kind of tricky with the haste and indestructible being on the same effect, because like you can't hold it up as a combat trick, I guess, necessarily. But even still, it's not bad. It's good for the colors. I'm still not convinced it's the best command in the set. Reduced to memory, 3 mana sorcery lesson. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller creates a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. It's almost like a banishing light that immediately gives your opponent back something, except they never get the original permanent back. So that could be relevant. Like banishing light, they destroy the banishing light, they get their permanent back or whatever, but this gets rid of the permanent forever. They're just left with a 3/2, which is good. Like a 3/2 red and white creature spirit token's nothing to sneeze at, and it's a sorcery. Like, I don't know, they could have made this instant, maybe. Even still, it just gives white more removal. Not really much else to say. Reconstruct history. This card I've been really hype on. 4 mana sorcery. Return up to 1 target artifact card, up to 1 target enchantment, 1 target instant, 1 target sorcery, and 1 target planeswalker from your hand. From your graveyard to your hand. Exile, reconstruct history. All 5. All 5 card types on an uncommon. This card is absolutely ridiculous, right? I mean, for the rate, at common level, this is disgusting. Like, this is a rare. Easily, this is a rare. And the fact that it exiles itself really sucks, but it buys you back so many different permanent types. And, I mean, obviously, playing all of these together in the same deck is really kind of awkward. So you're probably not going to hit for all 5 at a time. But this is basically the casualties of war in Boros. If you can get 1 or 2, you're feeling okay about it. But if you get any more than that, it's just value. And if you can get all 5, then you're like magical Christmas landing it up in Magic right now. So I'm definitely going to play this. I think it's really good. It buys back, like, this is perfect for the Solemnity 9 Lives combo, right? Like, it buys both of them back, and obviously not together, but buys both of them back. It buys back Gideon. It buys back your Pact of Negations. It buys back your Wrath of Gods and your Shatter the Skies. Like, this just does a lot. This does a super ton. It just gets you so much value. I could talk about this card all day and tell you how much I like it, but getting on to the next card. Quintorius Field Historian. This is a 5 mana Elephant Cleric, 2/4. Spirits you control get +1/+0. So we found the Lord for the spirits. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. So he pumps the squad, and he also creates more for the squad. So this is obviously a slam dunk. This is what you want to be doing in that deck. It costing 5 kind of stinks, and it's a 2/4 that is otherwise just a vanilla creature. But again, it's going to help double up on your token production. It's going to give all of your spirits a little bit of power boost, and then if you can give your spirits haste, you might be able to make like 3 or 4 tokens at a turn, you know, with this card. So Lorehold Excavation is a Boros enchantment. Beginning of your end step, mill a card. If a land was milled this way, you gain 1 life. Otherwise, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Pay 5, exile a creature card from your graveyard to create a tapped 3/2 red and white creature spirit token. Wow. I mean, seriously, wow. Boros doesn't get this kind of stuff, guys. It really does not get this kind of stuff. Not all the time. But being able to mill a card in Boros, or you slap this into like a Jeskai Reanimator deck or something. It also having just a random, hey, pay 5 and you make a 3/2 every turn on your opponent's end step or something. It's pretty good. Imagine this with like Zerta or something, right? Like this, it will make the effect cost 3, so you're paying 3 mana to make a 3/2. I mean, that's not bad. Even at the rate at 5, like this is easily like a 2 or 3 of in the spirit deck, right? Because it's milling, it's putting cards in your graveyard for you, it's getting you some life, it's dealing some damage. This just kind of fills a ton of roles, right? Incidental life gain, incidental damage to your opponents. It's got a factory. It just coincidentally just supports the entire theme all in one card. You probably play all 4 of these actually. Returned Past Caller is probably just the dumbest looking card in Magic right now with a converted mana cost. Look at this. This is ridiculous. This Wizards, what are you doing? Like they should have just did a 3 red, white, then hybrid. Boom. Sweet, short, to the point. Or they could have just did it vice versa. 3 hybrid, red, white. I don't know why. Who in R&D was like, let's throw it right in the middle and just come on. Returns Past Caller is a 6 mana 4/2, and good luck trying to explain how you're tapping your mana to your opponent. It has flying, it's Spirit Cleric. When it enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Honestly, not bad, but like this is just better. Reconstruct History is just infinitely better, even though it costs 2 less. It's not attached to a body, but it also hits spirits. That's relevant. It hits spirits. Lorehold Apprentice, Boros 2/2 Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell until end of turn, spirit creatures you control gain tap. This creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. I like this card only because that if you can't attack with your spirits and the board is just clogged up, you cast any instant and it turns them all into little machine guns, and I love that. But other than that, it's just a bear. It's a 2 mana bear. Rip Apart, this card is spectacular. Boros Sorcery, choose 1. It deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, or destroy target artifact or enchantment. A lot of people are complaining that this is like basically a Braid, but a lot worse. No, it's not. Like a Braid hit creatures for 3 or artifacts. That's it. This hits creatures or planeswalkers and artifacts or enchantments. And everybody's complaining that it's a sorcery. Of course it's a sorcery. It's basically better a Braid, right? It has to be sorcery, because otherwise it would just probably be a rare, and it would just be the snap go-to play card of all time. Between the two, obviously. You would just prefer to play this over a Braid. But there's applications for both, and obviously you're both good in individual decks. Personally, I think Rip Apart is a better card, pound for pound, just because of the versatility that it has. Whether it's a sorcery or an instant, I still just think this card fills a lot more roles for you than a Braid does by itself. Make Your Mark is a 1 mana Boros hybrid instant. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. When that creature dies this turn, create a 3/2 spirit token. I love it. I love all of these 1 mana spells that like just give you removal protection for all of your creatures. And this is a good one. It creates a 3/2. That's a really good body for a 1 mana investment. Plus, it gives your creature a +1, so you can just trade with something, maybe do a little combat trick. And yeah, I mean, there's really not much else to say. That card's really good. Illustrious Historian, 2 mana 2/1. You can pay 5 to exile a card Oh no. You can pay 5 to exile him from your graveyard to create a 3/2 red and white spirit token. This is insane. Like, the spirits have a lot of synergy, and this, like, for the power level, this is ridiculous. This could probably be played in Pauper, right? A 2 mana 2/1 that's already, like, okay. Like, it's a bear. It's not bad. But the fact that you can exile it from your graveyard for 5 and create a 3/2 with spirit token, even though it's tapped, you can still do it at instant speed, and that's pretty good to me. Relic Sloth, 5 mana 4/4, Vigilance Menace. Nothing else really to say about that. Thrilling Discovery, Boros Sorcery. You gain 2 life, then you may discard 2 cards. If you do, draw 3. This card is insane. This is basically like Cathartic Reunion, but instead of it costing 1 in a red, it costs Boros. It's a little bit better though. You gain the 2 life. You don't have to discard as a part of the cost. So if your opponents counter it, again, if you're playing this against a control player, you'd rather play this than Cathartic Reunion because they have to counter it first before you make any decisions. And I think that alone is enough to make this card ultimately the better pick, depending on the colors of whatever deck you're playing. Spirit Summoning is 3 mana lesson. Create a 3/2 spirit token. It's not bad. I mean, if there's a way to abuse the lessons, like truly abuse them, then I can see this being okay. But just a 3 mana make a 3/2 is terrible, considering that the rest of the cards we just covered so far make the spirit tokens at a much better rate. Lorehold Pledge Mage is a 3 mana 2/2. Core Shaman First Strike. I like that the cores made their way back into Magic again. It's First Strike, Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant sorcery spell, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. I kind of wish I had Double Strike with that effect and just been upshifted to an uncommon, but regardless, it's not bad. It's good for limited. Stonebound Mentor, 3 mana 3/3. Whenever one or more creatures leave your graveyard, scry 1. It sucks that it checks 1 or more instead of 1 individually, but again, beggars can't be choosers. Fury Comes Snarl. So this is cool. It finishes the land cycles that were first introduced in Shadows over Innistrad, I believe, where it comes into play tapped unless you reveal whatever the land type is, essentially from your hand. Otherwise, it enters tapped. So for this one, if you reveal a mountain or a plains card from your hand, and that's card, not basic, so it can be shock lands, whatever, then you can have this come into play untapped. And I believe they spoiled 4, so it's just 1 for each of the guilds or the schools. And then there's also these new common lands, and I think these are insane because it just makes all of the other tapped lands at common level infinitely worse now, right? This comes into play tapped just like every other one, but you can pay 4, tap and scry. Also kind of makes the temples seem really bad, right? Especially since they just reprinted them. Seems kind of whack, but I'm not going to complain because, again, like, these cards are really good and very well received. Leonin Light Scribe is 2 mana 2/2 Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. That's creatures you control. That's so good. So remember that cat deck that I made? We can go back and make like a cat spells deck, and we can just get in there. This guy seems. Sparring Regime is a 3 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, learn. So you reveal a lesson you own from outside the game, or you discard a card to draw a card. Whenever you attack, put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature and untop it. Now when I first read this, I thought it was broken because I thought it checked for all creatures. It only checks for 1 per attack. Super bad. But it does put counters on your creatures, and for that strategy, it does it every turn. It's a consistent way of getting it, plus it grabs something out of your sideboard or draws you a card. It's not terrible. It's not nearly as good as I first thought it was, though. Strict Proctor. This guy's pretty decent, though. 2 mana 1/3 with flying. Whenever a permanent enters the battlefield, causes a triggered ability to trigger, counter that ability unless its controller pays 2. You know, basically entering the battlefield triggers get countered unless they pay 2. Like in some fringe cases, think about like Blast Zone doesn't come in with the counter on it unless they pay the 2. Yeah, there's just a lot of random like little niche scenarios where this could actually be really good. But is it like standard playable? Is it main deckable? It's definitely like a sideboard option that I'm sure White probably needed, but who knows? We'll see how this holds up in standard. Semester's End, 4 mana instant. Exile any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers you control. At the beginning of your next end step, return each of them to the battlefield under your control. If it's a creature, it gets a counter. If it's a planeswalker, it gets an additional loyalty. Well, I mean, did Urian honestly need anything else? Really? Did it really need anything else? This is basically just copies 5 through 8 of Urian, I guess, if you really wanted to play that way. You can play Esper Urian right away out the gate, day one, with just this, nothing else new, and it's gonna do really good. It's gonna be really good. Does not hit enchantments and artifacts and all that kind of stuff, so there is that downside. I mean, I guess it's really not as good. I don't know, man. I mean, they're gonna play it, right? Like day one, Urian people are going to play it. Obviously, I'm sure there's somebody in the comments that mention it. Not a single person. I'm the only one. Academic probation. 2 mana sorcery lesson. Choose one. Choose a non-land card name. Opponents can't cast spells with the chosen name until your next turn. Or choose target non-land permanent until your next turn. It can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. So I like that this has the versatility to hit different things the way it does, but I don't like that it's until end of turn. Obviously, it'd be ridiculously overpowered if it wasn't. But being able to like freeze your opponent's creature for a turn, or just make it so they can't cast something very, very specific. Like if you're playing like mono white weenie or something, you can bring this in out of the sideboard to choose Shatter the Sky or Doomscar, so your opponents can't board wipe you for a turn, and that's like sometimes that's enough. Like you're just shutting your opponent off of whatever like they absolutely need against you. You can just like say, nah, you can't cast that till my next turn, and then that could just be enough. That could honestly just be enough to shut a lot of players out. Like Control, this is a perfect sideboard card. Absolutely. Elite Spellbinder, 3 mana, 3/1 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, look at target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. A spell cast this way costs 2 more to cast. So, this is hilarious because it was designed by PVDDR, which is Paulo Vitor Dama de Rosa, world champion. Okay, if you don't know who PVDDR is, look him up. He's a really cool dude. But he designed this card, and obviously it's really good. Like, it's designed from a pro player for pro applications, and this card is decent. Like the fact that it's kind of like Kitesail Freebooter, sorta, but just giving this to white, mono white doesn't usually get this kind of effect to look at target opponent's hand. Like that's not an effect that white gets ever, but the fact that it can exile something from their hand still gives them the chance to cast it. But important thing is, even if they kill this, they still have to pay that tax, and if you have multiples in play, then they have to pay per creature, so it would cost 4 more to cast, 6 more to cast, whatever. But I mean, there's a lot of applications. It's a human, it's a cleric, it's got 2 very relevant creature types. It's a 3/1 flying beater, so it's just going to get in sometimes. The fact that it doesn't have flash is the only thing I think holding it back from being tier 1, honestly. But this card is absolutely the nuts. Clever Lumamancer. 1 mana, 0/1. Magecraft, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Yikes. So this is like, I can see Boros spells just being a deck right out of the gate. Just like lowball creatures with a lot of these Magecraft effects, and just like all the best instants and sorceries that just get your opponent as close to dead as possible. Yeah, this is a very aggressive 1-drop for that. Stonebinder's Familiar, a 1 mana 1/1. Whenever one or more cards are put into exile during your turn, put a 1/1 counter on Stonebinder's Familiar. This ability only triggers once each turn. The fact that they made it so it's only on your turn and only once each turn makes this card terrible. Why would you play this when you can just play Flourishing Fox? It's just a better 1-drop. Unfortunately, even in the archetype where you want this, the fact that the effect only sees a trigger once on your turn, each turn, sucks. Like, you're not going to be able to make this guy very big very quickly. It's going to take you so many turns to get him to the same scale it would take you 1 or 2 turns to get a Flourishing Fox. Thunderous Orator is a 2 mana 2/2 with Vigilance. I love this guy, by the way. It's a core wizard, so 2 pretty cool creature types. Wizard's very relevant right now. When it attacks, it gains flying until end of turn if you share a creature with flying. Same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, and Trample. Basically all of the keywords. It comes with Vigilance himself, but he gets all of the other abilities of all other creatures you control when he attacks. And I mean, this guy's amazing. This guy is absolutely amazing. Dueling Coach, 4 mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, put a counter on a creature. You can pay 5 and tap to put a counter on each creature you control with a counter on it. There's already a creature like this in Standard. That's an uncommon that does this at just a better rate anyway. Defend the Campus, 4 mana instant. Creatures you control get +1 until end of turn, or destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. I like that it's instant, and it's definitely limited playable. I don't know about Standard. Combat Professor, 4 mana 2/3. At the beginning of each combat on your turn, target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains Vigilance. Not bad. Beaming Defiance, 2 mana instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains Hexproof until end of turn. I like that Hexproof found its way to white. Like, you can just give your creatures Hexproof till end of turn. It's not bad in mono white. I mean, Protection and Hexproof are very different and serve very different functions. The +2/+2 is also nothing to sneeze at, I guess. Ageless Guardian is just a 2 mana 1/4. Star Pupil, a 1 mana 0/0. Enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. When it dies, put its counters on target creature you control. Wow. Wow. Holy wow. This guy's insane, guys. This guy's insane. All right, so I've already had the Selesnya counters deck, the Abzan counters deck, and all that kind of stuff. And I was playing Swarm Shambler as the 1-drop for that deck because it comes in with a counter. It can put counters on himself, and it gives you a little bit of protection against removal. But this is awesome. This is awesome. So you can just play him. It comes in with counters. You can put more and more counters on him. When he dies, he just dumps them onto something else. What? 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 This guy's ridiculous. I'm playing all 4 copies of this. I'm rebuilding this Selesnya counters deck now. I absolutely have to. This is just nuts. Study Break, 2 mana instant. Tap 2 target creatures, learn. I like that it's an instant that has a pretty relevant effect that grabs you another spell from outside the game. I'm hoping there is not a counter spell lesson because that would be really, really annoying. Guiding Voice, 1 mana sorcery. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature, learn. If it was an instant, it'd be better, and I don't know. This could see play. The fact that it only hits 1 creature, there's a 1 mana sorcery that does the same thing, but it hits 2 creatures. I don't know if sacrificing the 1 counter to grab something out of your sideboard is worth it or not. It really just depends on the options for the lessons. Professor of Symbiology, 2 mana 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, learn. That's pretty good. Just a core cleric, grabs you an instant or sorcery, basically, because I think all the lessons are instants or sorceries. Or are they sorceries? I don't know. Regardless, grabs you a lesson from your sideboard. So it's just a bear, more or less, that grabs you another card, replaces itself immediately. Yeah. Watch out for foils of these. This is probably going to be worth a couple bucks. Eager First Year, 2 mana 2/2 Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Automatically worse than the one we previously talked about, the 2 mana 2/2 that gives all of your creatures +1/+1 until end of turn. Infinitely worse, but this is better in limited, obviously, because it's a common. This is just the common version of that card. Rise of Extus. This is a 6 mana 4 and 2 hybrid Orzhov colors sorcery. Exile target creature. Exile up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, and then you learn. So gets rid of stuff out of their side or out of their graveyard, which is nice. Sorcery speed. I mean, it's not going to be bad removal, especially in limited. You're gonna want to see something like this, maybe as like a one of. I'm sure that with all the instants and sorceries being very popular in this set, and the fact that you can bring them back very frequently, means that this could be a nice silver bullet. You know, get rid of their best instant or sorcery from the graveyard. You get a new one of your own out of your sideboard. I mean, this replaces itself, and it exiles something. I mean, yeah, this isn't really bad. The sorcery speed really sucks, but limited removal, this is pretty good for how much it costs. It kind of gives you enough value, I think. Getting into the next school of Magic, Prismari, kicking it off with Galazeth Prismari himself. This is an Izzet 4 cost, 3/4 Elder Dragon with flying. When it enters the battlefield, create a treasure token, and artifacts you control have tap, add any mana of any color. Use this mana only to cast instant or sorcery spells. Oh buddy. This is really, 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 really good. So I like to play a lot of artifact builds on the channel. I'm sure a lot of you are aware. I already have played, Simic and Teamer combo decks with Emery and Keenan, and I've also tried making a deck with Jora, the 4-mana Jora, and this guy seems pretty good to fit into that deck. I like this a lot. I really like this. And actually, I think this can fit in the dragons, just like a dragon's shell. Like, you can play this with Magda. Creates a treasure token. That's pretty good. It already synergizes with Magda. And makes it so you don't have to sacrifice your treasures at all. And that's amazing. And it turns all of your non-mana producing artifacts into mana producing artifacts. And that's any artifact. That's not just an artifact. That's artifact creature. That's an artifact land if you have it. So this guy's really good. I mean, this is probably an amazing commander, especially for Izzet artifacts. Yeah, I don't know, man. This is pretty good. Pretty good. Magma Opus. This is an 8-cost instant, 1 blue and a red. Deals 4 damage, divided as you choose among any number of targets. Tap 2 target permanents, create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token, and draw 2 cards. And you can pay double Izzet hybrid and discard Magma Opus to create a treasure token. Okay. I mean, the effect is pretty good. If it did not have that way of cycling it early, it would never see play, probably. But an 8-cost instant, it's very expensive, but I don't mind it because it's kind of like the whole point of this set. You're like ramping up into your instants and everything in Izzet colors, and I love that, actually. I think that it could have been more damage. Like 4 damage divided among targets kind of sucks. It could have been like 4 damage to X targets. Could have been a little bit better for the rate, but you're also getting a creature out of it. You're tapping 2 permanents. You're drawing 2 cards. And at the very minimum, it's just a 2-mana create a treasure token off the stack, basically, right? You're discarding it. So I don't know, is that the same as cycling, actually? Does that use the stack the same way or not? I don't know. Regardless, it's not a bad spell. I think that it'll see a home in the standard Izzet spell deck, and probably that's it. I'm sure somebody will try this in Historic. I don't think it's really good enough necessarily. Maybe just in combination with the dragon himself. Culmination of Studies is an Izzet and X sorcery. Exile the top cards of your library. For each land card exiled this way, create a treasure token. For each blue card exiled this way, draw a card. And each red card exiled this way, Accumulation of Study deals 1 damage to each opponent. I like it. The cards that are exiled are just gone, though. That sucks. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I'm definitely going to play it. I just think that it's awkward that it doesn't shuffle the other exiled cards back into your library or put them on the bottom in a random order or something. They're just gone for good, which could also be relevant depending on what you're trying to do. This with Crackling Drake is actually decent because it puts the cards into your graveyard or into exile, which Crackling Drake still checks for instants and sorceries, so even if you exile a bunch of those off the top, you're still in good shape. So you can make it so that the downside isn't a downside at all, but I don't know. We'd have to see. Expressive Artist. This is the Izzet 4 hybrid pips for a creature, orc, wizard, 4/4, magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, target a creature you control until end of turn. It has, if this creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else, and whenever you exile this creature, create a red-blue 4/4 elemental creature token. Whoa. I like it. So it gives all of your creatures protection. You can just, on a whim, too, instant speed. That's super good. Somebody tries to kill your creature, shock in response, make a copy of it, or make it so when it dies you get a 4/4 out of it. Like, that's pretty good. Is it target a creature you control? So it includes himself. It's not another creature, so you can target himself to replace it if you need to, at the very worst. But not bad. Uvilda, Dean of Perfection, 3 mana, 2/2, Djinn Wizard. Hold on, that looks like a merfolk. but I guess I can see it. Either way, you can tap to exile an instant or sorcery card from your hand and put 3 hone counters on it. It gains at the beginning of your upkeep. If this card is exiled, remove a hone counter from it, and when the last hone counter is removed from it, if it's exiled, you may cast it. It costs 4 less to cast this way. So this is really good with Alrund's Invocation. Blood in the Snow. That is it instant we just talked about, the like 8 cost one. It gives them all suspend, basically. It's just suspend. What's the other half do? Nasari, Dean of Expression, 5 mana, 4/4, Ifrit, Shaman. Ooh, haven't seen an Ifrit in a while. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of each opponent's library. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from one of those cards, and you may spend any mana as though it were any mana of any color to cast those spells. Ooh, whenever you cast a spell from exile, put a 1/1 counter on him. Or her. I can't be looking like a dude. I don't know. Regardless, either side dies to Solomon's Legacy. Terrible card. Whatever. Prismari command, 3 mana instant, choose 2, deals 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards and then discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token or destroy target artifact. This card's great. This is what I'm saying. This is one of the better ones, I think. 2 damage to any target, kill something, hits a planeswalker, draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards. That's good for what these colors want. Creates a treasure token, so it ramps you up a little bit, especially in these colors. It's very, very well appreciated. And in the theme, you really want the treasure tokens, and destroy a target artifact. Treasure tokens becoming more and more prevalent make me think that Gadrick could be playable again, or be playable at all, I guess. I'm starting to think that treasures are going to be tier 1. LOL. Torrent Sculptor, 4 mana, 2/2, Merfolk Wizard with Ward 2. Whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, counter it unless that player pays 2. That's a really good ability. Like, Ward is cool, so it just gives your opponents like a Kira Great Glass Spinner type effect, sort of, or I guess better yet would be Kupala, whatever, the Merfolk dude. But it's just whenever this becomes the target of a spell or an ability. That's pretty nice. Enters the battlefield, exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, put a number of 1/1 counters on it equal to half of that card's mana value rounded up. So like, I like it, but even if you exiled Magma Opus, it comes in as a 6/6. Like, it's just a 4 mana 6/6 with that ability slapped onto it. That it can't be killed, basically, unless they pay to. It's not the greatest, because there's not really much else as far as like super dumb instants or sorceries. If it wasn't half, it'd be amazing. But let's see what the other half says. Flamethrower Sonata, 2 mana sorcery, discard a card, then draw a card. When you discard an instant or sorcery card this way, it deals damage equal to that card's mana value to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. It's good, I guess. Like, the removal half is fine. This is a little lackluster. The fact that it's half rounded up is very bad. But, I mean, the removal half is fine, so you're going to play that anyway, and then you could play this later on in the game. If you're going to play Magma Opus deck, you might as well play this, I guess. I don't think it's that great, the front half anyway. Practical Research, 5 mana, instant, draw 4 cards, and then discard 2 cards unless you discard an instant or sorcery card. It's pretty good. Sucks that it costs 5, but it's pretty good. I mean, draw 4, discard 2. Can't really go wrong. I mean, this is amazing in limited. Obviously, this is fantastic. In standard, I'm sure this could still see play. You already play Into the Story, and that usually costs 4 on average. This costing 5 and having to discard 2 or 1 unless you discard an instant or sorcery. I'm still going to play it. Musadu Maelstrom. I'm not even going to try to pronounce stuff anymore. Maelstrom Muse. This is another one of those weird guys. So, 1 Izzet Hybrid Blue-Red for a 2/4 Genius Wizard with flying. Whenever it attacks, the next instant or sorcery you cast this turn will cost X less to cast, where X being the power a Maelstrom uses if this ability is resolved. Worded very weird unless the translation is just kind of off, but when it attacks, the spell you choose costs X less to cast, where X is its power. That's just what that should have said. Not bad though. Creative Outburst. So 3 double blue, double red for a 7 mana instant. Creative Outburst deals 5 damage to any target. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Or you can discard 2. You can pay 2 and discard it to create a treasure token. What? I'm sensing the theme here, and I love this. This is awesome. 5 damage to any target? Like, yeah, I'll pay 7 to hit you for 5 in the face. Grab any card I want off the top 5 of my library, or I can just discard and make a treasure token. What? Like, I love all these cards where you can just make treasure tokens, basically, on a whim. And putting a bunch of these into play helps a lot of strategies. Gadrick being, the one I was already mentioning. Magda, obviously Revel in Riches works very well with that. Smothering Tithe works great with this too, this whole strategy. Expression of Repetition. Blue-red sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand, one at the bottom of your library, then exile the rest. Until end of turn, you may play the exiled card. Ooh. So you get to basically choose 2. One goes to the bottom, you get one into your hand, and then if you can afford it, you can cast the one that gets exiled. I'm already going to play this in the Arc-like Phoenix deck that plays like Collected Conjuring. This just seems like a mini Collected Conjuring type effect, and I like it. I think that this is a really strong card. It's like a 3-in-1 type effect. Yeah, it's good. Draws you a card, lets you play something else. Prismari Apprentice. Is it 2/2 Human Shaman Magecraft? Whenever you cast an instant or copy an instant or sorcery spell, it can't be blocked this turn. If this spell has mana value 5 or greater, put a 1/1 counter on it. It's pretty good. I like this for the spells deck. So I already saw the 1 mana white guy. So I guess it's America too. It seems like the 5 schools are 2 colors, but they also introduce like a splashable 3rd color that fits the theme of whatever the strategy is. So like obviously I saw some Magecraft Golgari cards too, so you can even splash green, black, and white if you want to do Magecraft that way. So Magecraft is split across all of the different schools, it seems, so far. And yeah, I like that there's the versatility in the deck building, because like you really could take it in any direction while also playing pretty much the same core archetype. Stormkiln Artist is a 4 mana 2/2 Dwarf Shaman. It gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. That's cool. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a treasure token. Sucks that he doesn't have trample, but he's gonna just be large dwarf boy. Like, he's gonna hit for a lot, and the fact that he creates treasures whenever you cast an instant or sorcery is not bad. It's gonna help ramp a lot. Elemental Masterpiece is a 7 mana sorcery. Create 2 4/4 blue and red elemental creature tokens, or you called it. Pay Izzet Hybrid, discard it to create a treasure token. So it seems like most of the Izzet spells just have that stapled on, and I kind of like that. It gives all of them a cycle effect. It's really strong. Teach by Example, double Izzet instant. Whenever you cast or copy your next instant or sorcery spell, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like that's a really strong effect for a common. Like, you think about Explosion Expansion. Or Expansion Explosion, right? Expansion copy to target instant or sorcery that I think cost 4 or less. This just copies any instant or sorcery you cast. That's like a huge deal. Plus, yes, like someone just mentioned in the comments, it's copies 5 through 8 for Neoform, and that's pretty juicy too. Vedante del Batala Agyar Battleseer, 5 mana 3/4 Ogre Shaman with 3/4 haste, and you can tap him to scry 1. That's hilarious. So you can either attack and beat face, or you can just be like, roar! I'm a scry real quick, all casually. Not bad. Spectacle Mage, 3 mana, 2/2 flying, instant and sorcery spells you cast with mana value 5 or greater cost 1 less to cast. I love this guy. 1, the art is so good. It's amazing. The art's fantastic. Two, all the spells, it seems like all the best Izzet spells cost a lot of mana, so it's nice that you have another like Goblin Electromancer type effect in standard at least. And it's on a 2/2 with flying that just casually can get in for some damage. Prismari Pledge Mage, double Izzet hybrid for a 3/3 Orc Wizard Defender. When you cast or copy the instant or sorcery spell, you guessed it, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. Getting into the next foreign card, Elemental Summoning, a 5 mana sorcery lesson. Create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. Not really feeling it. It's not bad, I guess, in limited. The Frost Boil Snarl is the Izzet version of the land cycle that I talked about earlier. You reveal an island or a mountain from your hand. Otherwise, this comes into play tapped. And same thing with the Prismari Campus. It comes in tapped, taps for the Izzet colors, or you can pay 4 and scry. Scrolling down a little bit, Teaching of the Archaics, 3 mana sorcery lesson. If an opponent has more cards in hand than you, draw 2 cards. Draw 3 cards instead, and if an opponent has at least 4 more cards in hand than you. So if they have just 1 more card in hand than you, you get to draw 2 for 3 mana, which is basically divination. But your opponent has to have more cards in hand than you, otherwise this literally doesn't do anything. But if they have 4 more cards than you, so if you're up against control and you know you're out of resources, you drew this or something. I mean, it draws you 3 cards for 3, and the fact that it's a lesson means you can tutor it out of your sideboard, like basically when you need it. So I guess that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say about it. It's just a 3 mana draw 3 at best, or divination on average, and at worst, it's a 3 mana do nothing, literally. Getting into the next card, multiple choice. This card's pretty funny. Blue and X for a sorcery. If X is 1, scry 1, then draw a card. If X is 2, you may choose a player. They return a creature they control of their choice. That sucks. If X is 3, create a 4/4 blue or red elemental creature token. And if X is 4 or more, do all of the above. So if you, like in the early game, you get some value. In the mid to late game, you get more value. But towards the end, you're getting all of the value at once. So this is almost like the inscription, the blue inscription of knowledge or whatever it is. Inscription of Insight. So it's almost similar to that, but instead of having to pay almost 6 mana to kick it and everything, this just costs 5 mana total to get all of the above. And again, even though they get to choose what they bounce to their hand, that kind of sucks. You are still getting some value, and I think for the blue and red elemental creature token deck, they're going to want to play this anyway, just because it's going to help dig for the cards. It's going to help interact with their opponent. It's going to make the tokens, and obviously it's going to do all of the above. Getting to the next card, we have Archmage Emery. I can't even pronounce that, guys. 4 mana 2/2 human wizard with Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. This is ridiculous, actually. So if you could theoretically just mill yourself, right? If you copy a copy spell and just start like an infinite loop, isn't this just basically this? You can do the same. You can win the game and combo out the same way as you do with Ralzeric doing the you do his -2, you know what I mean? You copy the next spell you cast the copy spell, and it just starts like a loop basically, and you're just casting a bunch of spells infinitely and dealing 1 damage to your opponent. You could theoretically do the same thing with Archmage, so whenever you draw a card or whenever you cast and you just keep that loop going, you just draw your entire deck, and then I guess you can try to win with either Jace or Thassa's Oracle. A very interesting card. Helpy Guide is a 3 mana 2/2 beast. You can untap another target permanent you control, or you can tap it to tap target permanent only if you control 8 or more lands. So I like that you can tap your opponent's stuff later on, which is nice. But untapping another target permanent you control, being able to just do that freely is pretty juicy, actually. It'll pair pretty well with like Nyx Lotus or something for the mono blue devotion, or some strategy similar to that. Solve the equations. 3 mana sorcery. Search your library for an instant or sorcery, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle. That's like really good, actually. I haven't seen that in a while. Just search for an instant. I mean, for 3 mana sorcery speed, it's not terrible. You already play Fey Wishes. for granted or whatever, and that costs 4. Even though it's stapled to a 2-mana 1/4 with flying, this is still just, you can search your library 1 turn sooner, and it's going to grab whatever you need. It doesn't exile itself, so you can buy it back later on somehow. It's pretty good. Frost Trickster, 3 mana 2/2 Bird Wizard. When it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. It's not bad. It's basically Frost Links in limited, except it has flying, so it's, you know, Wingdrake, I guess. Windrake would be the 3 mana 2/2 generic, but still, you play this in limited all day. Blue-white flyers for sure. Resculpt, 2 mana instant, exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. Obviously, you'd want to play this on your own, but even still, that would just make it so it costs 2 cards of your own to get a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token, and I don't know if that's really worth it. So you can play like Ornithopter or something, or just some generic 1 mana artifact, and then pay 2, exile it, and create a 4/4 at instant speed. That's not really too impressive though. Curate, 2 mana instant. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, put any number of them into your graveyard, and the rest back on top of your library in any order. Draw a card. Wow, that's pretty good. It's not Thought Scour. It's not really what I would particularly want, but I do like that you can just put them into your graveyard and then draw 2, or draw a card, I mean. So you're seeing 3 cards with this, which isn't super strong, but if you like what you see, you can keep them on top, draw a card, or you can just put them in the graveyard, which then fuels other strategies. This could be playable in like Mill or in Reanimator. Bury in Books, 5 mana instant. This spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets an attacking creature. Put target creature into its owner's library second from the top. Wow. So it costs 3 to do that, but that's still a pretty good rate. I like it. It's basically Jace, or Big Teferi's ability, Hero of Dominaria, or Azorius Charm, if any of you guys remember that card. That was a funny one. But for 3 mana, I still think this effect is not bad. You already played Unsubstantiate occasionally in Standard, and I think putting it second from the top could be pretty good. Pop Quiz is a 3 mana instant, draw a card, and then learn. I do not like that it's draw 1 card for 3 mana. That sucks. It does grab something out of your sideboard, so it is like theoretically drawing you 2 cards. I guess this actually could be considered better, right? This is probably just better than Divination. Yeah, I guess this is probably an auto-include in the lesson deck, honestly. Waterfall Aerialist, 4 mana, 3/1, Jin Wizard, flying in Ward 2. I mean, I like this ward ability. It's showing up on some random cards, but I do like it. Whew. Alright, that was a lot so far. So, you guys thirsty? Take a drink. Getting into the Quandrix School of Magic, starting off with Tanazir Quandrix himself, 5 mana Simic Elder Dragon, 4/4 with flying and trample. When it enters the battlefield, double the number of 1/1 counters on target creature you control. When it attacks, you may have the base power and toughness of other creatures you control become equal to Tanazir Quandrix's power and toughness until end of turn. Ooh, this is really good. Really good. The fact that it has trample and flying, you can pump it, super good. It doubles the counters on creatures you control. If you put a counter on this in response to him coming into play, you can target himself and double up the counters. It's not super relevant, but it's something you can do. You can also double up your Hydroid Crisis counters. Ooh, your Nissa Elemental Land token counters. There's a lot of things you can double up. And the fact that you can make all of your creatures become 4/4 base power, or even more based off of whatever you make his power, because I'm sure in Simic and some other form of counter-based strategies, he's going to be huge. So this is going to be monstrous in Standard. Cosmina Enigma Sage. This was one of the first spoilers, and I'm sure some of you are already familiar. Cosmina was already in Arena recently, or was already in Magic recently in War of the Spark. But she's come back now to join us as a Simic Planeswalker. She is a 1 green and a blue, comes in with 2 loyalty. Each other Planeswalker you control has the loyalty abilities of Cosmina Enigma Sage. Very unique. I love this effect. It's very similar to how Nicobolas steals a bunch of Planeswalker effects by being able to use their abilities. Cosmina gives all of her abilities to all of your other Planeswalkers. And it's really nice because she has a +2, so if your Planeswalkers only have a +1, you can, or not even a plus at all, She gives all of your planeswalkers the plus. Think about all the uncommons from War of the Spark that only have minuses, and think about how much better they get when they just have a +2 to scry 1 so they can get some more loyalty back. Like this plus like Narset seems pretty good. I mean, I can't even really think of any of the other really good ones, but that's because that's how unplayable they were. With this, they're not unplayable anymore. -X, create a 0/0 green-blue fractal creature token with put -X counters on it. If you have, you know, a planeswalker that has a bunch of counters on it, and you know it's going to die next turn or something, there could be a weird situation where your opponent has a bunch of flyers. You can minus and just kill your planeswalker because you know it's going to die anyway to get a fractal creature token with X counters on it. And then you can -8, search your library for an instant or sorcery card that shares a color with this planeswalker, exile that card, shuffle. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. You can search for Alrund's Invocation, take an extra turn if you want. You can search for a board wipe if you need to. You can search for a Collected Company if you want. You can, you know, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can grab, obviously. Augmenter, Pugilist, 3 mana, 3/3, Troll Druid with Trample. As long as you control 8 or more lands, it gets +5/+5. 8 or more lands is a large stipulation to hit, but if you do, Jesus, man, it's a 3 mana 8/8 with Trample. Like, what else do you need? And then the fact that it has another card on the other half, Echoing Equation, 5 mana sorcery in blue, choose target creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of it until end of turn, except those creatures aren't legendaries if the chosen creature is legendary. So if you get the Augmenter guy, and you have all the lands, and you have a bunch of 1/1s or whatever, you can turn them all into 8/8s with Trample. It's just like, the card synergizes with itself and has a win condition basically built into it. I mean, this card is hilarious, to say the least. It's a druid and a troll, which are two very interesting creature types. And, I mean, you can play this in the Shapeshifter deck. Getting into the next card, Manifestation Sage. This is the 4 mana Simic hybrid human wizard 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X 1/1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your hand. Holy Jesus, this card is nuts. This card is nuts. So it just makes creatures based on the number of cards in your hand. So obviously it gets worse the less you have, but in these colors you're going to have at least 3, 4, 5 on average. So any more than that's even better. Think about this with Thassa. You can just blink this and make a bunch of tokens every turn. There's so many ways to abuse this, and the fact that it's a 4 mana creature sucks. If it was a 3 mana, just think about how good it would be with Collected Company, but obviously that's why they had to make it a 4 mana creature. And also contributes to the devotion for Thassa. So this coming in, you only need 1 other pip because this and Thassa's 5. Or no, you only need 5, right? That's it. You only need 5. So yeah, this just turns on Thassa. Other than that, I can't say much. Just the fact that it makes tokens, it puts counters. This could be good in an Ozolith deck that makes fractals, if that's super important. Kiani, Dean of Substance. 3 mana green, 2/2 elf druid. Tap to exile the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it into your hand. Otherwise, put a study counter on it. Okay. Pay 5, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put a 1/1 counter on it for each different mana value among non-land cards you own in exile with study counters on them. You have to like tap this like a bunch of times before it really starts becoming relevant, because if you play it on 3 and you tap it on 4 and then on 5 you have the mana, you're only making a 1/1. Like, they have to have the study counters on them. It can't just be cards in exile. So by turn 5, you're making 1/1s. At the earliest, at best, you're making 1/1s. At turn 4 with ramp, you're making 1/1s. I don't think it's like, the floor is very bad. The ceiling, however, is ridiculous. If you can tap this at least, 4, 5, 6 times. There's a bunch of ways to untap your creatures so far we've seen in this set, and I'm sure there's a couple more that are either already in the set spoiled that have yet to be covered, or some more that are going to be spoiled. So there is a possibility that you can make this become like a huge threat. And the other half is a 4 mana 3/3. This is Abraham, Dean of Theory. Bird Wizard with flying. You can pay 2 blue and X, tap, exile the top X of your library, and put a study counter on each of them. Then you may put a card you own in exile with a study counter on it into your hand. See, now this is ridiculous. 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 So obviously these two creatures synergize incredibly well with each other. Like if you just pumped 3 mana into it, you exile the top 3, now you're making 3/3s, right? So like if you just think about the mana investment, you're just making 3/3s. But then if you talk like exile 3 a turn, 4 a turn or something, now you're talking like making like 10/10s and 15/15s and stuff over the course of a game with just these two creatures. I like that they synergize very well with each other. Kind of interested to try these guys out. Moving into the next card, Quandrix Command. This is the Quandrix Command, obviously. 3 mana instant. I can't believe I just said that. It's so stupid. It's 3 mana instant. Choose to return target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell. Put 2 1/1 counters on target creature, or target player shuffles up to 3 target cards from their graveyard into the library. So I like that this fills a lot of roles, like they all do. The removal aspect is nice. Bouncing a creature or a planeswalker is always nice to be able to deal with that. Countering artifacts or enchantments isn't like the most relevant, but I mean, there are a handful of pretty played enchantments and artifacts to deal with. So at worst, this could just be like one of those modes you barely choose, and then it just randomly comes up and ends up being really good. And then you have put 2 1/1 counters on target creature. That obviously fills the role of fitting the theme of counters, like we were discussing earlier with the dragon and everything. And then target player shuffles up to 3 target cards from the graveyard. You know, it's gonna help a little bit, I guess, against like mill or whatever, just buying stuff back from the graveyard. This obviously is really good. Emergent Sequence, 2 mana sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle it. That land becomes a 0 green and blue fractal creature that still lands. Put a 1/1 counter on it for each land you had enter the battlefield under your control this turn. What? This is really, really good. So, I mean, you know, it's gonna get at least like, it's gonna come in as at least a 1/1. But if in like the later turns, this could come in as like a 3/3, 4/4 if you're lucky. Aether Helix, 5 mana Simic sorcery. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. It's not bad. I like that it's denying your opponent some resource while getting some of your own back. But there's no way you're going to be able to play it the same turn you buy it back. This costs 5. It's just a expensive regrowth, but it also has a removal stapled onto it, semi-removal. Simone Quandrix Prodigy, it's a Simic legendary creature, human wizard with 1/2. You can pay 1 and tap, put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, so that's pretty good. Pay 4 and tap, draw a card. If you control 8 or more lands, draw 2 cards instead. I like it. This helps get you to the 8 lands by putting lands from your hand into play. So I like that aspect, that it just helps you ramp that way. Drawing a card for 4 mana isn't bad. Like, you already pay that anyway for Spectral Sailor and stuff. But then if you have 8 or more lands, which again, you're just trying to play lands anyway, you're going to draw 2 cards. So, I mean, this seems like a slam dunk for that strategy. Golden Ratio, 3 mana sorcery. Draw a card for each different power among creatures you control. That's really, really cool. That's very unique. I like that. So, wow, that's pretty cool. Just how many different powered creatures could you possibly fit in a one deck that also fits a theme? From now on, every green and blue deck, I'm just gonna look at the ratio, and if I have the golden ratio, I'm gonna play this card. Quandrix Apprentice, 2 mana, 2/2, human wizard, magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a land from among them, put that card into your hands, put the rest on your bottom of the library in any order. Really, really good. I'm loving these magecraft cards. I think they're all incredibly strong. This one is pretty funny. Just being able to grab stuff off the top, it's pretty juicy. Eureka Moment, 4 mana instant. Draw 2 cards. You may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. It's just bigger growth spiral. Do you honestly play this? Like, Euro's gone, so is this? Moving on. We have Spined Drake, Simic 1/1 with flying and death touch. That's really cool. This is a sleeper. It's a common. If you guys open any foils of these, probably going to be worth a couple bucks too. Not saying like you're going to make any bank or anything, but I mean, this is just like obviously a pauper playable card. It's really good. Quandrix, Pledge Mage, 3 mana, so it's 1 and 2 Simic hybrids for a 2/2 Merfolk Druid with Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy, put a 1/1 counter on Quandrix, Pledge Mage. What is this? Fractal Summoning. This is an X and 2 hybrid green, or 2 hybrid Simic for sorcery lesson. Create a 0 blue fractal creature token and then put that many counters on it. I like this. This is probably one of the better lessons so far, as far as like application. This could potentially finish a game depending on how much mana you have, and being able to grab it out of your sideboard means you always have it. It's a way that you could put counters on your creatures if you need to. Obviously, just having the synergy with whatever fractal token stuff you have going on and everything. I don't know. This is probably just one of the better lessons, I think. Vine Glimmer, Snarl, the Simic land, reveal a forest or an island card, and blah 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 blah. Quandrix Campus, same thing, Scry. Sinister Dominance, 3 and a black for an instant. You may pay one and a black instead of paying the spell's mana cost. If you pay 1 and a black, an opponent may draw a card. Exile a target creature or planeswalker. That's awesome. What the heck? Dang, that's really good. Okay, so it costs 4 at instant speed to exile a creature or planeswalker. Or you can just cast it for half its mana cost if you feel like it, at the cost of your opponent draws a card. That seems really good. So like if you really need to get rid of that opponent's creature or planeswalker in a pinch, and you probably don't mind giving them that draw if it means they can't like pop their ultimate and win the game or something. Yeah, I'm loving this. That's fantastic. Confront the Past, 1 and X for a sorcery lesson. Choose 1, return target planeswalker card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, or remove twice X loyalty counters from target planeswalker and opponent controls. It kills planeswalkers, brings back planeswalkers just at an awkward rate, I suppose. Tenured Incaster is a 5 mana 2/2 vampire warlock. Enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it attacks, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I like this. I think it's really expensive though, but I do like that for the counter strategies, that you just have a way to like close out the game, get those last few points of damage in. This could be nice as just like a 1 or 2 fun of or something, just to be cheesy and, like I said, close out a game out of nowhere if you're at like a board stall or something. This is one of my favorite 1-drops in the set, Bat Eye. This is a 1 black for a 1/1 bat with when it dies, you learn. I love this card. So when it dies, you discard a card, draw a card, or search your sideboard for a lesson. So I love that you have this utility super early in the game. Your opponent is going to want to kill this because the longer they let it live, the more choices you have, I guess. Like the more that your decision matters, because if they get to see more and more things and stuff, they're going to want to kill it early. So you go and get your lesson before you see what they're playing. Otherwise, they wait too late, and then you see what they're doing, and you can search for the correct card every time, and then you can just obviously imagine like pumping this. Like they're not going to want to kill it, but they're going to have to kill it, and then you could pump it, play like, I don't know, any equipment or something on it. You can sacrifice it and just learn on the spot. Like if you have Woe Strider in play, you can instant speed search your library for a lesson. That's really good. That's not even discussing the discard draw card application for mill strategies and reanimation strategies and things like that. This creature just does a lot, and it's a 1 mana 1/1 with flying that can just get the chip damage in, kind of like how Spectral Sailor did and everything in Standard. It's just a good card. I think this is very slept on. You're gonna see a lot of this guy. You're gonna see a lot of it, and you're probably gonna get annoyed of it because it's the second coming of the cat, honestly, I think. I mean, you can't recur it or anything, but it's just going to replace it as the premier 1-drop because, duh, like Witch's Oven, duh, this card is fantastic. Mage Hunter, 4 mana, horror, 3/4. Whenever an opponent casts or copies an instant or sorcery spell, they lose 1 life. This is really good. So you can actually bring this in out of the sideboard specifically against a Magecraft deck, and it makes it so all of their Magecraft abilities come with a price and become a little bit worse. Go blank, 3 mana sorcery, target player discards 2, then exiles all cards from that player's graveyard. Just a strictly better mind rot. From now on, this is just a strictly better mind rot forever. Discarding 2, that's exactly what Mind Rot did, and then exiling the graveyard, that's just the bread and butter, man. Getting into the next one, Believed, Poet, 2 mana, 2/1. When it attacks, you may pay 2 life. If you do, it gets flying until end of turn. It's Human Warlock. This is pretty decent. I like that you can pay the 2 life. This might actually, like, low-key be good in Historic for Death Shadow. Drains yourself to 2 life, gets it closer, closer, and closer to your Death Shadow, and it has a nice, decent evasion, so you can just get the damage in. I don't know. Could very well be played, if not at least as a budget alternative. Getting into the next card, Enormous Disappointment, hilarious. 4 mana, instant. Each player loses 2 life, draw 2 cards. Not bad. Pretty bad in the mirror match for the Historic Death Shadow deck. I know we're not actually going to play this in there, I was just joking. But it is cool that both players lose 2 life and you draw 2. So if you're playing against that War of Attrition, you can get their life down a little bit. If you just need to get them close to dead and you need to find the resource, I mean, this is actually pretty decent. Usually it's you lose 2, draw 2, but each player losing 2, does each player draw 2? This card is not an Enormous Disappointment, in my honest opinion. It's not. It's actually pretty good. All right, getting into the Silverquill school, we have Extus, Auric, Overlord. Sorry for the quality. The spoiler itself is actually a little blurry, so we have a better look at it. Extus, Auric, Overlord is 1 a white and 2 black for a 2/4 legendary creature, Human Warlock with double strike. Magecraft, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is obviously bananas, right? Like in the Magecraft deck, just buy back all your dudes, get back more value, get more instant. Just like, I don't know. Magecraft seems kind of sketch. Like, I think this is actually a really busted mechanic, and a lot of creatures have it, and it seems like a lot of the effects are just pretty strong. So it's also tacked on to a sorcery, a 8 mana sorcery, Awaken the Blood Avatar. This card is cool though. 6, a black and a red for a sorcery. As an additional cost, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. You create a 3/6 black and red avatar creature token with haste, and whenever this creature attacks, it deals 3 damage to each opponent. So it's essentially a 6/6. You can make this cost as little as 2 mana by sacrificing up to 3 creatures. So it's not the worst. Like, you're not getting like the biggest, dumbest creature or something in Magic, but you're also forcing your opponent to sacrifice a creature that deals damage to them directly. And I mean, it's also red, so that checks for Tor Brand and stuff. Like, there's a lot of various applications for that. But in an Aristocrats deck or the Rakdos sacrifice deck, they want to sacrifice their creatures anyway. So you already know this is insane for the Loris deck. This is a sorcery, so it does not matter for the permanents. You can play Loris as a companion. You can play this with oh my god, you can play this with Priest and all the annoying cards, just all the annoying sacrifice cards that they already want to sacrifice anyway. This is just insane. They never even have to cast this half. They can just play this in the Rakdos sacrifice. Could even turn it into a splashable Jeskai sacrifice deck. Like, this, man, I'm not looking forward to playing against that at all. Shadrix Silverquill is a 5 mana, 2/5 Elder Dragon with flying and double strike. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose to. Each mode must target a different player. That's the only thing I don't like about this card. Target player creates a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Target creature draws a card and loses 1 life. Or target player puts a 1/1 counter on each creature they control. Against control, it's good. If they have no creatures, obviously, choosing the mode that makes it so they put counters on no creatures is hilarious. Or if they can't have the tokens for some reason, like if you can make it so if a creature entered the battlefield and wasn't cast, whatever that card is, Containment Priest or something, you can play that. It has this applications, drawing the card and losing life. Like, it's really good. And double strike, I mean, the card is disgusting, but there's ways to make it better than it already is. Like, I want to turn them downsides into upsides, baby. I don't want to sit there and give my opponent all this value. I want all this value for myself. Shahil Dean of Radiance, 2 mana, 1/1 Bird Cleric. Hey, check it out. Flying Vigilance. You can tap, put a 1/1 counter on each creature that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. I like it. It's short, sweet, to the point, puts counters on your dudes. It also has Flying Vigilance. I mean, it's a nice creature to put counters on. And what's the other half? It's a Warlock. The other half is Embroise, Dean of Shadow, a 4 mana 4/4, put a 1/1 counter on another target creature. Then Embroise, Dean of Shadow, deals 2 damage to that creature. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, draw a card. I like that both halves put counters on creatures. I also like that this gives you like a draw engine in the sacrifice or in the counter decks, but I don't like that you have to kill your own creatures to really get the value. Silverquill command, 4 mana sorcery, choose 2. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains flying until end of turn. Return target creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Target player draws a card and loses 1 life, or target opponent sacrifices a creature. All 4 modes are good. I think this is probably one of the weaker ones again. I don't know what it is with Orzhov and only returning stuff for a mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it had to be. They could have made it a 5 mana sorcery and just be any creature. I don't know. But drawing a card, losing a life, and making opponent sacrifice a creature for 4 sorcery speed isn't really that good. Giving a creature flying and returning something that costs 2 or less, and giving that creature +3/+3, still not that like backbreaking. I mean, no matter how you slice the 2 modes, I don't really think you're going to get like a super ton of value that's going to like push any game in any given direction. Silverquill Apprentice, Orzhov 2/2, Human Warlock with Magecraft. Whenever you do the thing, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. I like it. I don't know why it's an uncommon. Could have just been uncommon at that point, but it's obviously a 2-drop for the deck if you want to play it in Orzhov colors. Shine Shadow Snarl is the Orzhov, reveal a plains or a swamp, does a thing. Rowan and Will, or cover Rowan first. Scholar of the Sparks, 3 mana, Planeswalker, Rowan with 2 loyalty. Instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast. You could +1 to have it deal 1 damage to each opponent. If you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, it deals 3 damage to each opponent instead. And then you can -4, you get an emblem with whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery spell this turn, you may pay 2. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. I like that it's a 3 mana Planeswalker. It's not that backbreaking. It's not that scary. It doesn't take over a game right off the bat. But it is going to give you a lot of resources and a lot of means to closing out a game pretty quickly. Will, Scholar of Frost. 5 mana Will with 4 loyalty. Instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast. It's just the same thing. The fact of the matter is you can have them both into play at the same time, making all of your instants and sorceries cost 2 less to cast. And +1, up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness 0/2 until your next turn. That's good. That's good, like interaction removal type stuff. -3, draw 2 cards, and -7, exile up to 5 target permanents. For each permanent exile this way, its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. It's kind of like okay. It's kind of okay. Yeah, it's kind of just like okay. I don't know. It's awkward. It's kind of awkward. I guess you exile their lands, they make a bunch of 4/4s, and then you -0 on Ugin and just wipe them all out. I don't know. Like there's ways that you can make that like land destruction. Hey, you can go for like a Will Ugin land destruction deck, but I don't know. It's awkward. I guess you can exile your own permanents and create the tokens, but Fervent Mastery, 5 mana sorcery. You may pay 4 rather than pay the spell's mana cost. If 4 was paid, an opponent discards any number of cards, then draws that many cards. Search your library for up to 3 cards, put them into your hand, shuffle, then discard 3 cards at random. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, right until that last line of text, I was about to be like, oh my god. But they really shafted this card. I don't have anything to say about this. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's gonna see play. I mean, there's plenty of applications, don't get me wrong. It's not a terrible card, but it's just like the discard at random. Did it have to be at random? Couldn't it have at least just been discard 3 cards, Wizards? Did it have to be at random? Damn. Getting into the next card. Intervention of the Dragons, 4 mana sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile an instant or sorcery from your graveyard. I like that a lot. Actually, I like this line of text a big ton. Intervention of the Dragon deals X damage to each non-dragon creature, where X is the mana value of the exiled card. If a creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. Exile Intervention of the Dragon. Ooh! 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 My mono red dragon list in Historic is... it's one of my favorite go-to just to play and have fun and enjoy the game of Magic. And this is a slam dunk going all 4 copies. Like, you don't actually have to play it in a tribal dragon deck, but still very good, especially with the Magecraft and Collected Conjuring. You might want to play this just because you're already putting a bunch of instants of sorceries in your graveyard anyway. Getting into the next guy, very, very long name. Conspiracy Theorist, 2 mana, 2/2 with Human Shaman. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 1 and discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Pretty good. Whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, you may exile that card from your graveyard. If you do, you may cast it until the end of this turn. So you draw a card, or you discard a card, draw a card, and then to discard a card, if it's a permanent, basically, you can exile it and play it, as long as it's not a land. I mean, it's pretty good. They've been trying to give red a lot of these type of effects, like getting card advantage off the top, and I think they did it pretty well with this one. Ifrit Flame Painter, 4 mana, 1/4 Ifrit Shaman with double strike. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that spell will be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Whoa! So if you can give this thing some sort of evasion, you're getting 2 instants or sorceries from your graveyard for free every combat. That's holy shit. That's really good. I'm stoked. Impassioned Dust Speaker, 5 mana creature, Minotaur Warlock, 3/4. When it attacks, you may put an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to the bottom of your library. If you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of turn, you may play those cards. And this is decent, at least for a limited, at the very least. Blood Age General, 2 mana Spirit Warrior, attacking spirits get +1/+0 until end of turn. Pretty decent. I don't know if it's going to be played in 5-color spirits or anything, but I mean, it's definitely decent. Start over, 3 mana less, and choose 1. Deal 1 damage to any target or destroy target artifact. I hate that it's 1 damage. 1 damage? I mean, the tutorable artifact removal is probably where it's mostly important. Igneous Inspiration, 3 mana sorcery. It deals 3 damage to any target, and then you learn. I like it. Sorcery speed sucks. The fact that it's 3 mana sucks, but it's basically Bolt that learns. This guy's so cool. Hall Monitor, hell yeah. 1 red, Lizard Shaman with haste. You could pay 1 red and tap. Target creature can't block this turn. I actually really like this guy a lot. This guy is actually like really good. You can attack with him, make it so creatures can't block. Like, he's definitely gonna be played. Explosive Welcome, 8 mana instant, deals 5 damage to any target and 3 damage to any other target, and then you add 3 red. So it technically costs 5 at instant speed, but you have to have the 8 mana first. Kind of whack, but you also can't really like just do this at instant speed without having something else to follow up with to use the mana. But dealing 5 damage to someone or something, and then 3 damage to someone or something is not bad. Grinning Ignis is a 3 mana creature elemental. You could pay a red, return him to its owner's hand, add 2 colorless and a red. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. Whoa. Storm? Like, is this like good enough for Storm? Approach of the Dragon, 3 mana sorcery. Approach of the Dragon deals 3 damage to each opponent. You may exile Approach of the Dragon and 4 other cards named Approach of the Dragon from your graveyard. If you do, search your library for a dragon creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle it. A deck can contain any number of cards called the Approach of the Dragon. What? What? This card is amazing. This card is great. This card is great. As far as like a deck can contain any number of cards type effect goes, I think this is probably my new favorite one. I love this. Sudden Breakthrough. 2 mana instant. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Create a treasure token. I like that a lot too. Heated Debate. 3 mana instant. This spell can't be countered. Deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That's pretty good. I like that it can't be countered and it hits both creatures and planeswalkers. Very important against control. Very, very important. Enthusiastic Study, 3 mana instant. Target creature gets +3/+1 and gains trample until end of turn, and then you learn. Probably one of the better common ways to create a learn, or to learn a lesson or whatever. First Day of Class, 2 mana instant. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it and it gains haste until end of turn. Learn. Okay, so first you learn, you grab a lesson, and then whenever any creature comes into play under your control this turn, that's pretty cool. It's not going to be very like efficient early on, but late game, if you can manage to like multi-spell a couple of creatures at a time, giving them all haste and +1/+1 seems pretty good. All right, getting into the fifth and final school, Witherbloom. If you guys are still here so far, I appreciate you guys for staying through this video. I know it's going to be very long, like I said, but if you made it this far so far, please leave a like on today's video, and if you're a newcomer, please hit the subscribe button. It would really mean a ton, and I plan on doing content like this more in the future for new spoilers and stuff like that, so stay tuned for all that. Anyway, let's dive back into it. Starting off with Professor Onyx, which is actually Liliana, which is weird, right? Like, I don't understand the lore. I have to look into it, but if anybody knows about the lore of the set, please let me know down in the comments below. I'm actually really curious. I want to know. 6 mana Planeswalker with 5 loyalty. Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Buddy, that's really good. +1. You lose 1 life. Look at the top 3 of your library. Put 1 into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. I like that you lose a life, but you get the choice of the top 3, the best card, and then the rest get into your graveyard. That's super good for like reanimation strategies and stuff. -3. Each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. So they can't like just choose a wimpy creature. I like that. -8. Each opponent may discard a card. If they don't, they lose 3 life. Repeat this process 6 more times. If that doesn't kill your opponent like immediately, I don't know what will, but it gets there pretty quick too, actually. It comes in at 5. It only takes 3 ticks to get to 8. It's pretty good. Getting into the next card, and this is actually a really good control finisher, actually. I like playing the other 6 mana Liliana that's on Arena, but I actually like this one more. I think this seems to be very strong. Getting into the next card, Valentine, Dean of the Vein. That is so hard to say. Valentine, Dean of the Vein. That's just like, whoever wrote this is obviously, like, this is a character from his 80s rock band song that he tried to write for his band, and they said, no, we're not writing this song about Dean of the Vein. It's not, no. Made its way into Magic, though. It's a 1 black, 1/1 vampire warlock with menace and lifelink. If a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, you may pay 2. If you do, you create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. So no matter what, it exiles the creatures. That's really strong, actually. A 1 mana 1/1 vampire with menace and lifelink that exiles creatures your opponents control when they die. Super, super strong. And then if you can afford the mana, you get the pests. But what's the other half? 4 mana druid, Lisette, Dean of the Root. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 1. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain trample until end of turn. And she's a 4/4 herself. Pretty good. Pretty good. Puts the counters on each of the pests that you create. I like that these DFC creatures really synergize very well with themselves, but they also like fill very different roles. You do not have to play them both in the same deck, technically. Like, you don't have to play both halves. You can just play this in a mono green deck, you can play this in a mono black deck, or you can play them in a green black deck, both focusing on different things or together. But I think Valentine is probably the better of the two, just because that ability, exiling a creature, this is probably going to be like a $20 card. Witherbloom command, Golgari's sorcery, choose 2. Target player mills 3, then you return a land from your graveyard to your hand. Destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Target creature gets -3, -1 until end of turn. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. I like that it's the cheapest of the commands. It's very simple, just green black. The 2 modes that you get, in relation to the cost, I think are worth it. Destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with 2 mana 2 or less. It's not going to hit a lot of things, but it's going to hit relevant stuff. I don't like that the -3 is at the power. It should just be at the toughness. It should just be -3, -3. That would have been better. Target opponent loses 2 life, gain 2 life. That's always a good effect, as at least against like burn. That could be very relevant. Milling 3, getting you the land is good, again, for reanimation strategies and just other graveyard shenanigans. Gets you your lands, so that way you don't miss your land drops. I mean, I think this card just does a lot. It gives you a lot of versatility in a lot of matchups. But I'm mostly focused on that destroy the non-creature clause and the target opponent losing 2 life, you gain 2 life. Those two seem like the most relevant modes. Witherbloom Apprentice, Golgari 2/2, Human Druid, Magecraft. When you do the thing, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Obviously, this pairs very well with Liliana, Professor Onyx. Does the same exact thing, it just does half the damage. But again, if you're playing Magecraft, especially in these colors, you want to play this. It seems like every color has a 2 mana dude that does something at Magecraft, and this one is probably one of the better ones. Pest Summoning is a 1 and 2 Golgari hybrid lesson. Create 2 1/1 black and green pest creature tokens with when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. So this obviously pairs very well with Valentine, Dean of the Veen. Valentine, Bernardino the Veen, Valentine. You already know, like, you could hear it, right? Like, tell me I'm not the only person that can hear this as like an 80s rock song. Necroblossom Snarl, Golgari land that does the thing. Ecological Appreciation. This just looks like it's going to be super good. 2 and a green and X. Sorcery. Search your library and graveyard for up to 4 creature cards with different names that each have mana value X or less and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those, shuffle those cards into your library, and put the rest onto the battlefield. Exile Ecological Appreciation. This is... oh my god. So, for 4 mana, it grabs you 4 1/1 creatures with different names out of your graveyard and or library. 2, same thing. It can grab you 4 2/2s with different names. It can grab you 2 2/2s and 2 1/1s, whatever. It just scales up and up and up, and wow, holy crap. Who cares that you exile it? Like, you're probably winning the game. If you play this, you're probably just winning the game. This obviously goes into every green EDH deck forever. This goes into a lot of green combo decks that just grabs you all the combo pieces you need. Holy crap. Like, I'm crafting all 4 copies of this. Accomplished Alchemist, 4 mana, Elf Druid, 2/5. You can tap to add a color, or you can add X mana of any one color, where X is the amount of life you've gained this turn. Not bad. I guess it depends on how much life you're really gaining and how much that can contribute to ramping, but not bad. Verdant Mastery, 6 mana sorcery. You may pay 4 rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Search your library for up to 4 basic land cards, reveal them, put 1 into the battlefield tapped and under an opponent's control if 4 was paid. Put 2 onto the battlefield tapped under your control and the rest into your hand, and then shuffle. So for 6, you get 2 into play and into play. I'm confused. 2 into play and 2 into your hand. But if it's for 4, you get 2 into play, 1 on your opponent's side, and 1 to your hand. I think, honestly, it's worth it. For 4 mana, you're getting 3 lands, and your opponent's getting 1. I think that's great. That's fantastic. Dragon Guard's Elite, 2 mana, Human Druid, 2/2, Magecraft, do the thing, put a 1/1 counter on it. You can pay 6 to double the number of counters on it. That's awesome. I love this. Magecraft is fantastic. Magecraft as an ability is fantastic. But how many instants and sorceries are there going to be that are super relevant to play in these colors? Think about it. In Golgari, like, how many do we have? Fatal Push and stuff. Thoughtseize. Assassin's Trophy. Witherbloom Command. There's actually a ton. Never mind. Collected Company. The list goes on. The list goes on. I think Magecraft is probably one of my new favorite mechanics. What does this guy do? Carrick Shepherd is a 5 mana creature, Elf Druid. Magecraft, do the thing. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Good and limited. pretty bad everywhere else. Master Symmetrist, 4 mana 4/4, Rhino Druid. That's cool. Reach, whenever a creature you control with power equal to its toughness attacks, it gains trample until end of turn. I love that. The flavor on that's really cool. So as long as your creature has the same power and toughness, they gain trample when they attack. It's pretty sweet. Fortifying Drought, 1 mana instant, you gain 2 life. Target creature gets +X/+X, where X is the number of life you've gained this turn. I like that too, actually. So I guess if you are focusing in on the life gain strategy and you want to splash the green, I guess you're becoming like a Selesnya life gain type deck. Still, giving your creature the +1 or +X/+X, you're giving them at least +2/+2, and that's not bad. But if you're gaining like 10 life or more, like that's a good way to just close out a game out of nowhere. Field Trip, 3 mana sorcery, search your library for a basic forest card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle, and then you learn. I think this is probably one of the best cards that learns in the set. The fact that it searches for a basic forest, to be very specific, forest card. It still ramps you a little bit, and that's honestly probably just one of the better effects that has learn stapled onto it. And then what else can you grab with it? What kind of lessons can you get? We'll have to see some more of the lessons, especially in these colors, but I'm sure that they're going to have something to do with lands, and this just helps considerably. We're going to cover the colorless cards. Strixhaven Stadium is a 3 mana artifact. You tap to add a colorless, put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, remove a point counter from Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove all of that. Remove them all, and that player loses the game. This seems like one of the easiest win the game cards ever. Like, it's a mana rock, so it's just doing something good anyway. Whenever you use it for mana, you get a counter. You can proliferate it. When you deal combat damage, whenever a creature deals damage to you, you remove a counter. So it doesn't matter how much damage, it's just per creature. As long as you can fortify yourself a little bit, you're fine with that factor. Who cares? But then you can also play this with like Vorinclex too, and Vorinclex gets there, and this is fantastic. Wandering Archaic, 5 mana creature avatar. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, they may pay 2. If they don't, you may copy that spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So this card is fantastic. All of their counterspells come with the clause that they have to pay 2, or otherwise you're going to counter their counterspell. And I think that that's one of the biggest applications for this card, especially for Tron out of the sideboard in Modern. Like, you can bring this in, and your opponent wants to try to board wipe, you can just... Well, I guess board wipe doesn't matter, but if they try to, like, counter your stuff, like I said, you get to cast a copy of that card unless they counter it themselves. So it's nice that it's stapled onto a 4/4, and then it has a sorcery, and this card is insane, by the way. 3 mana sorcery, explore the Vastlands. Each player looks at the top 5 of their library, reveals a land and or an instant or sorcery card from among them, and then puts the cards they reveal this way into their hand and the rest on the bottom of their library in a random order. Each player gains 3 life. You would think that really sucks because your opponent's also getting the value, but like I said earlier, they are introducing Storm into Arena on Historic. So once they have the Mystical Archive cards and stuff with Mind's Desire, Grape Shot, all that stuff, this is going to help find you a lot of the instants and sorceries and all that good stuff off the top, so you can just keep chaining. And it also comes stapled onto a backup win condition and something that just interrupts your opponent a little bit. I think this card has a lot more power than people give it credit for. How much power is still yet to be told. I think this even makes its way into Modern Storm, honestly. It's just that good, especially since they can just combo off the turn that they're winning. They don't care if you get the life and you draw the cards. They don't care. You win, like Storm players just win the game the turn they storm off. That's how it goes. So having this is just an extra means of digging for a bunch of instants and sorceries. It's a slam dunk. It's gonna break Modern again. Cody, Vociferous Codex. I had actually talked about this recently in my Discord. I think this card is funny, and I really want to give this to a player with Harmless Offering and then play Sorcerer Spyglass so they can't do anything, basically. 3 mana, 1/4. You can't cast permanent spells. I mean, that's terrible. But you can pay 4 and tap it to add Werberg to your mana pool. And when you cast your next spell this turn, exile the top until you exile an instant or sorcery with lesser mana value than the spell you cast, and then you may cast it without paying its mana cost. If you use this, if you're not playing permanents, you don't really care. This could be the only permanent in the entire deck, and then you can just worry about instants and sorceries or whatever if you want to go that route. But I really think it's hilarious to just play this and then play Sorcerer Spyglass, naming Cody, and then Harmless offering it to your opponent. They can't cast any permanent spells, no planeswalkers, artifacts, enchantments, creatures, vehicles, nothing, except instants and sorceries. And then your opponent has to be able to deal with artifacts, and that's it. Like, they have to be able to blow up Cody or Sorcerer Spyglass, and not a lot of decks have artifact removal, especially not in the main board and best of one and stuff. So if anything, it's a really funny but janky and maybe slightly tier 2.5 type funny jank. Who knows? Getting into the next card, we have Reflecting Golem, 3 mana artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery that targets only Reflecting Golem, you may pay 2 to copy it. If you do, you may choose new targets for the copy. It's good for like heroic, I guess, but it's not too extravagant. Introduction to Annihilation, 5 mana sorcery lesson. Exile target non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. This is what I'm talking about. This is fantastic. All of these colorless sorceries, the colorless lessons, I think these are freaking awesome. Like, holy crap. I also skipped this guy. Cloudwork Archivist, 6 mana, 4/5 reach. Pay 2 to put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. That's kind of decent. Who really cares? These, though, are fantastic. Expanded Anatomy, 3 mana lesson. Put 2 1/1 counters on target creature. It gains vigilance until end of turn. Oh my god. Exile target non-land permanent. 3 Introduction to Prophecy. Scry 2, draw a card. Environmental Sciences, 2 mana lesson. Search your library for a basic land card. Reveal it. Put it to your hand. Shuffle. You gain 2 life. See what I'm saying? I like... These are fantastic. They fit so many different roles. These are all colorless lessons, so you can mix and match. You can play them in all the different schools. You can mix and match the schools with the Magecraft and like all the different lessons. This is actually like looking to be a really fun set, especially in limited. But I think the standard environment is going to be incredibly diverse. Like you might play like 5 Simic decks in a row, but they might all be built entirely differently while also fitting a very similar theme, but just play out completely different. And like, I'm excited. I'm really excited. Campus Guide, 2 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, search the library for a basic land card, reveal it, shuffle your library, put it on top. It sucks that it goes on top, but it's stapled to a 2 mana 2/1. I like that. Arcway Commons comes into play tapped, sacrifice unless you pay 1, taps for a color. Hall of Oracles, taps for a colorless. You can pay 1 to tap it for any color, and you could tap it to put a counter on target creature. Activate only as a sorcery and only if you've cast an instant or sorcery this turn. I mean, it's decent. It puts counters on creatures, and that's all we care about. But that is wrapping it up for the standard spoilers so far today. Anyway, I'm gonna refresh the page one more time before I'm done recording the video to see if I missed anything. But we're going to dive right into the Mystical Archive cards, so stay tuned. Without further ado, all the cards that I've really wanted to talk about this entire video, getting into the Mystical Archive. So these are cards that are being reprinted and reintroduced into Arena, and well, I mean, into this set. They're going to be seeded into every pack. So if you were to buy this in a paper or play this on Arena, opening up any packs or playing in drafts, they're going to be one of these cards randomly slotted into the packs. And this is, I think, a really nice way of reprinting cards that are not standard legal, but being able to just print them into historic, and especially reprint the cards that need the reprints for like veteran players and paper and all that stuff. So there are a few of these that are not standard legal or not going to be historic legal at all, which I will cover as we come across them. So getting started, we have Eliminate. This is just an alternative art. You should also, yeah, and I mean, you can tell they have alternates. So Eliminate, it's already in Arena, as we know, but it's 2 mana, destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. The art's really cool on this, and then you get this Japanese alternate art, which is really cool, and this applies to all of the Mystical Archive cards. Tainted Pact, this card is not going to be legal, so I won't cover it. Tezzeret's Gambit, 3 and a Phyrexian blue, which means that you can pay it with a blue mana or pay 2 life, draw 2 cards, then proliferate. Very nice. 3 mana, especially at sorcery speed and colorless to get this effect, is really strong. Grape Shot, 1 in blue, sorcery. Grape Shot deals 1 damage to any target, and it has Storm, so whenever you cast this, copy it for each spell you've cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. Like I said, guys, Storm is here. Storm is here, and it's going to be very, very, very strong. I don't know if it's going to be nearly... It's not going to be nearly as busted as regular Storm, but I don't know if it's going to necessarily just be a trend or if it's going to be a real deal deck. Who knows? Divine Gambit, 2 mana, double white, exile target artifact, creature, or an enchantment opponent's controls. That player may put a permanent card from their hand onto the battlefield. This is just an alternate art for something that's already in standard. Natural Order, unfortunately not on Arena either, so I will not cover. Agonizing Remorse, 2 mana, sorcery, target opponent reveals their hand. You know, choose a non-land card from it, or from their graveyard, exile that card, you lose 1 life. God's Willing, 1 white mana instant, target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice, and you scry 1. Regrowth, 2 mana sorcery, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. I'm pretty sure this is also banned, so I don't even know why I talked about it. Increasing Vengeance, 2 red, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. If this spell was cast from your graveyard, copy that spell twice instead. You may choose new targets for the copies with flashback of 5. This one I'm not sure about either, if it's banned or not, but if it isn't, then this is definitely playable. Lightning Helix, Boros. Lightning Helix deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. Pretty sweet. Love to see it. Yeah, absolutely love to see it. Compulsive Research, 3 mana sorcery, target player draws 3, then they discard 2 cards unless they discard a land. Faithless Looting. The art looks awful. What is happening? I'm glad they finally nerfed this card. The art was OP. Gift of Estates, 2 mana. If an opponent controls more lands and you search your library for up to 3 plains cards, reveal them, put them to your hand, and then shuffle. I think this is legal. If it is, very good. Doomblade, destroy target non-black creature for 2 at instant speed, very good. Despark, white and a black, exile target permanent with mana value 4 or greater. Adventurous Impulse, 1 green, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Negate, 1 in a blue, counter target non-creature spell. Chaos Warp, 2 in a red, instant. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it into their hand. So it's a complete gamble. You can shuffle away their best creature, and then they can just rip right back into it. You can also turn their biggest, dumbest thing into a land. It's definitely a gamble, but it's one of the best cards I think Red has access to in the form of like chaotic removal. Stone Rain, yeah, you know it. Stone Rain, Pons is back, baby. 2 in a red, destroy target land at a sorcery speed. Means that land destruction decks are going to definitely run rampant very early on, so be prepared for that, and I think that's going to be really good. So sorry guys. Tendrils of Agony, 2 and 2 black for 4 mana sorcery. Target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 with Storm, which means it's a way to close out the game. Claim the Firstborn, we already know this card. Mana Tithe, 1 mana instant, counter target spell unless his controller pays 1. Approach of the Second Sun, a 7 mana sorcery. If it's the second time you've cast it, you win the game. Otherwise, you put it in your library 7 from the top and you gain 7 life. Infuriate, +3/+2 for 1 and instant speed. Primal Command, 5 mana sorcery. Choose 2. Target player gains 7 life. Put target non-creature permanent on top of its owner's library. Target player shuffles their graveyard into their library. Or search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Obviously, a ton of value packed onto this card. I'm surprised this is the only command that they decided to reprint in this cycle, but I'm glad that they did. Thrill of Possibility, discard a card, draw 2 for 2. Electrolyze, 3 mana instant, deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets, and you draw a card. Very good effect. Vitalize, gain 3, draw a card. Crux of Fate, 5 mana sorcery, destroy all dragon creatures or all non-dragon creatures. Ayy, I love to see it. Memory Lapse, I'm pretty sure is not legal. One in the blue, counter target spell. If this spell is countered this way, put it on top of his owner's library instead of that player's graveyard. Same thing with Brainstorm. I don't know if this is legal. One blue, draw 3, then put 2 in their hand from the library in any order. Teferi's Protection, 3 mana instant. Till your next turn, your life total can't change, and you gain protection from everything. All permanents you control phase out. Exile Teferi's Protection. So it just protects literally everything for a turn. With some super sick new art. I kind of want to see what the Japanese one looks pretty sick too. Kind of looks like Samurai Champloo's artist did this. Somebody let me know in the comments on that one. Day Judgment, 4 mana sorcery, destroy all creatures. Putrefy, 3 mana instant, destroy a target, artifact, or creature. It can't be regenerated. We really wanted to see that again. That's pretty cool. Harmonize, 4 mana sorcery, draw 3. Really helps green out a lot. Ephemerate, a 1 mana instant, exile a target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control with Rebound. So it's a flicker effect that comes back the next turn. Blue Sun Zenith, 3 blue and X, target player draws X cards, shuffle Blue Sun Zenith into his owner's library. Channel, this is not legal on Historic. Defiant Strike, 1 white, just target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn, draw a card. Mind's Desire, 6 mana sorcery, shuffle your library, then exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost, and this has Storm. So obviously, if you get like a Storm count of 20 or something, you're shuffling your library 20 times and then casting a spell off the top, randomly revealed. But obviously on Arena, it's going to make that process a lot easier, and you get to just storm off and play a bunch of stuff off the top of your library. Village Rites, sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards for 1. Whirlwind Denial, 3 mana, blue instant. For each spell and ability your opponent's control, counter it unless its controller pays 4. Very good. It's gonna help against counter wars and stuff. Not really sure how like playable this is right away, but who knows. Inquisition of Kozilek, I love this. 1 black sorcery. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it with mana value 3 or less. That player discards that card. I want to see what this card's art looks like. Ooh. Ooh. That's really cool. That is really cool. Obviously, this is fantastic. Like, we already have Thoughtseize. Now we have Inquisition, which means Mono Black is absolutely really good. Like, Mono Black in Historic is easily tier 1, one of the best decks. Easily. It has has some of the best modern cards and, like, just eternal playable cards already on Arena, and then they just add more and more. So, Sign in Blood, 2 black, target player draws 2, loses 2. I love this. I was actually crafting a deck recently, and I was looking for a deck that had this effect. I think this is a slam dunk for the Death Shadow deck, as cheap as it sounds. On Arena, anyway, you don't have that many options. So being able to draw 2, lose 2, helps you find your Death Shadows, and it makes it easier for you to get your life total low enough. Weather the Storm, just another Storm card. You gain 3 with Storm for 2 green, for 1 and a green. Growth Spiral, obviously we all know what this does. Cultivate, we all know what this does. Dark Ritual, this is banned, unfortunately. Urza's Rage, 3 mana, instant, can't be countered, deals 3 damage to any target. If it was kicked, instead it deals 10 damage to that permanent or player, and the damage can't be prevented. The kicker is very expensive, but still, it just can't be countered, so this is a very good card. Snakeskin Veil, 1 green, put a counter on target creature you control. It gains hexproof until end of turn. Corrosion Grip, I love that they printed this too. 3 mana instant with Split Second. Split Second means as long as this spell is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities, which means this card cannot be countered or interacted with at all. Counterspell, this is banned, unfortunately. Shock deals 2 damage to any target. Duress, 1. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Lightning Bolt, fortunately, is banned. Strategic Planning. They should have put this in Arena. Come on, guys, just do it. Just do it. Like, who cares? The format's already getting really fast and like crazy. Just put Lightning Bolt on Arena. Strategic Planning. 2 mana sorcery. Look at the top 3. Put 1 of them into your hand and the rest in the graveyard. Time Warp. Pay 5. Sorcery. Target player takes an extra turn after this one. I don't know if this one is banned or not. Same thing with Abundant Harvest. 1 green, choose land or non-land, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind, and then you may put the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. So I like this for creature decks, because if they need a creature or whatever, you know, search non-land, search land if you need the land. Demonic Tutor is automatically banned. Opt 1 blue, scry 1, draw a card, and Swords to Plowshares is already banned. Exile creature, its controller gains life equal to its power. This is all the Mystical Archive, different like alternate arts. So I'm just going to do a little scroll of this if you guys want to take a peek at these. So I'm just going to like step out of frame a little bit. All these art look beautiful too, by the way. Like, what is this? Like, look at this cat samurai. Look at this cat samurai boy. Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is going to be an amazing art collection series. A lot of people... Oh my god, look at that corrosion grip. That's amazing. Wow. The lightning bolt, the shock. Yeah, these are all really cool. Hey, so before I started recording the wrap-up, they actually spoiled a few more cards for us, so I'm going to cover them live for you guys. First impressions. Body of Research, triple green and triple blue for a sorcery. Create a 0/0 blue and green fractal creature token with put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your library. What? This should be illegal. Letter of Acceptance, 3 mana artifact, tap to add any mana and pay 2, tap and sack to draw a card. It's not bad, it's good and limited, I guess. Team Pennant, 1 mana artifact equipment. Equipped a creature gets +1/+1 and has vigilance and trample. What? Equipped creature token 1, equipped 3. What? What? This card is great. Alright, so this is good for the like the Fervent Champion Boros Warrior deck that I had, but it's also really good for just awkwardly equipping the tokens on the low and making them super aggressive. Square Up is 1 in green blue hybrid instant. Target creature has base power and toughness 4/4 until end of turn. That's pretty cool. That's a nice little combat trick. Serpentine Curve, 4 mana sorcery. Create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X/1/1 counters on it, where X is 1 plus the total number of instants and sorceries you own in exile and in your graveyard. Surprisingly strong for a common. Very strong for a common. And then Expel to finish off today with Expel, 3 mana sorcery instant, exile target tapped creature. I like this card a lot, actually. It's amazing and limited, obviously. It's at least playable in standard as like a couple copies or something. It's a decent removal spell, I think. But that's it for today's video, everybody. Again, I'm sorry that for how long it's probably going to be, at least an hour and a half, 2 hours. But if you've made it this far, it means you've watched the entire video, and it means a lot to me. Thanks a lot. Like, seriously, thank you for your support and helping the channel and everything. And if you made it this far and you were a newcomer, please consider clicking the subscribe button down below and hitting a like on today's video. It would really help out the channel a ton. And leave a comment down below if you guys are excited for any particular cards right out the gate, because I am interested in building the decks that you guys want to see first over what I want to see. So please, please, please let me know down in the comments below what cards you would like to see first, and I will see you guys the next time that the spoilers come out. I'm going to be refreshing my page tomorrow, and you'll probably see another video with more spoilers coming, so stay tuned for that. And I'm Rob, aka Untitled Chapter. It's been real, everybody, and I will see you all in the next video.